I am. All right, can you see my screen?
I can.
All right, wonderful. Well, thank you very much for this opportunity, Amy. Welcome, everybody. Appreciate it. My name is Klaus Frost. I'm with ISE. ISE has been in the, let's say, manufacturing space for over 40 years, and I've been lucky enough to be within that time frame for the past 28 years, wearing a variety of different hats within the organization. So happy to be here and share what we have regarding our solution. And I want to maybe piggyback off of a couple of the terms that Blake was using, visibility and execution. But from our standpoint, everything that we're doing is very much geared towards the shop floor. So when we look at that, what I mean by that is the MES, and our agenda here is why you need one. Then we'll take a look at the platform and the overall takeaways from the solution. So the the acronym MES is one, many of them in the world of manufacturing, in the world of software. But what it stands for is Manufacturing Execution System. So the key word there is execution. And when you look at it from the standpoint of what takes place out on the shop floor, it's far more than just data collection. So when we look at and talk to different organizations, what they're trying to do out on their shop floor, the aspect that they're trying to address is the execution of activity. But in that case, they don't necessarily have potentially the right tools to do so. Data collection is good, but at the same time, it's far different than an MES system. So when you're looking at execution and trying to achieve that, that's what you need. In our solution, MV2 stands for Manufacturing Visibility, another one of Blake's words, but visibility and velocity. So we're really leveraging the visibility and making that such that it supports the velocity and the throughput of your materials out on the shop floor. A couple of key metrics that we look at and share with organizations when they're evaluating MV2 and the different financial and operational metrics that you see here in terms of the efficiency gains, reduction of defect rates because of the integration of quality into the production process. Also, inventory carrying costs because of the accuracy of the information that we can provide, that execution layer, if you will, that allows you to maintain and ultimately decrease your your inventory because you have the ability to understand where you are, the consumption, the usage, etc., and make sure that your inventory levels are accurately staffed to your demands. And then finally, labor and operational costs because of the streamlined nature of an MES solution and the workflows that we offer. Everything is tied into one workflow. You have the ability from an operator standpoint to actually go ahead and execute your activities in a clean, streamlined manner. And under the covers, MV2 will take care of all the ERP updates that the system needs in order for it to keep itself regulated and the information shared with it. Implementation range, that can vary, of course, on scope and quantity of end users, so on and so forth, but roughly to give you a perspective of what that looks like, 3 to 9 months. And then same thing with the ROI range, where you have that information presented, the different workflows that you're going to optimize. So quite compelling business case when you look at the MES and what it ultimately has to offer. Coming down one level, as far as our solution, what it addresses, what it supports, and what we found through that 40 years of history is really the simplicity wins out on the shop floor. Your operators are there to do more or less what you've asked them to do in terms of processes, run machines, etc. They don't want to be at a device navigating the screens, updating information, remembering to do this at this particular step in the process, etc. So simplicity rules the day, and it ultimately drives adoption. The pre-built workflows that we have allows the data that we're collecting, that we're understanding, to turn into action. And that action then guides itself in terms of the operational efficiencies that I alluded to earlier. When you're transitioning from potentially a paper-based system or an application suite of very disparate applications, you can get a very transformational type of effect. So a digital transformation for those relying on paper, Excel, spreadsheets of those things, to provide the visibility and the change and the growth that you're really looking for in today's day and age out on the shop floor. Constant change is out on the shop floor. Constant growth is what organizations need to do. And to really address that from a manufacturing and operations perspective is really what we're talking about. And when you look at it and start to put the parts and pieces of the solution together, you really get this kind of shop floor command center approach. So you have the visibility into all the activity that's taking place out on the shop floor. And as it relates to the Business Central side of the house, we have pre-built integration to Business Central, so nobody has to worry about that. But what's nice is in the event there's let's say an outage of Business Central for whatever reason, that does not impact the operations. We continue to run 24/7, 365, and we'll queue up any of the activity that takes place during that outage with Business Central. And then once Business Central comes back online, we'll update the core ERP system with all that activity. So again, very much a focused and a hyper-focused at that on production operations and being able to support those even if BC is not available. And then finally, machine integration capabilities, because what we're doing there is really providing that holistic approach and more or less connecting your machines out on the shop floor to Business Central. And when you do such a thing in this concept of a manufacturing execution system, then you get the whole and complete picture of the production operations, the execution side of the house, where the issues are, maybe where your rates are off, so on and so forth. But then you can optimize the execution of the activity because you have the ability to see the entirety of the execution process. The platform in and of itself, we have it arranged by different modules for the sake of simplicity, but also the applicability to the business processes or the manufacturing process, I should say, out on the shop floor. So as you can see here, quite a few different areas of capability, functionality, etc., that I alluded to, but also the form factors at the bottom where you can see information dashboard type approach, very quickly understand exactly where things are out on the shop floor, where supervisors need to potentially draw their attention. In this case, in the example at the bottom row of my slide there, in the middle image, there's two red icons. That's indicating a downtime condition. And in the world of manufacturing, there's nothing worse than downtime and not necessarily knowing about it. So the capability of MV2 to have those operators interact with the system, request help in terms of a communication platform, as well as the visibility and the different types of form factors that you can see to make it truly usable for the operators out on the shop floor, the supervisors, anybody that's a particular persona of the manufacturing processes out on the shop floor. As it relates to a full manufacturing environment, where does it fit? One could say, well, manufacturing execution, I kind of get that. I understand that. Well, this particular infographic is to really just kind of cement its place. But we look at in a traditional manufacturing environment, you have BC on the far left, as well as on the far right. And now you've got all the production activities that are taking place in between those 2 points. And that idea or that sense of MV2 is, well, it just really kind of speaks to the shop floor, when in all actuality, it actually is much bigger than that. So from the sequencing that we provide, allowing supervisors, whoever's in production control, to manage the activities out on the shop floor, change sequences, etc., to the material, to the production activities, to the quality, to the KPIs, the metrics, etc. This all-encompassing unit that is the shop floor command center, again, that is completely and totally focused on the execution of activity on your heart and soul as a manufacturer, which is your shop floor. One or two more quick slides, and then I'll go into live code. But what we talk about in terms of the integration between MV2 and Business Central, and this is key in terms of our ability to run standalone, again, even if Business Central is not available. But all this content or this data that we import from Business Central includes order information, item information, employee, etc., to really support the application and the ability for it to support the activities out on the shop floor. And as those activities are being reported on by the operators, supervisors, etc., in that guided workflow, all that transactional information is then going to update Business Central in real time. And so as you have those two applications working in conjunction with one another, the flow of data between them gets faster. Not only does it get faster, but it also gets cleaner because of the edit checking that we do have inside of MV2, such that the transactions will not be permitted to move forward to preserve data integrity if it does not meet all the edit checks that are within the overall application and the workflows that you have defined for it. So important to understand the relationship of those two applications, the ability for MV2 to run even if the shop floor is not available. I'm sorry, if the ERP system is not available, but then also from one other step is that contextual scenario to say between Business Central and MV2, as well as your machines. Now you've got the ability to understand your complete and total holistic picture of the execution process out on your shop floor. Okay, I'm going to transition over to the actual live code and talk about ease of use, visibility, and a downtime scenario that we have. So I'm going to stop sharing for a second, come over to my window, share that. Amy, can you be my eyes and ears? Can you see a new screen? Excellent, thank you very much. Okay, and as far as time, I think I have a few minutes left, so I'll try and keep this brief as we go. But I want to give an appreciation for just the visibility and also ease of use. So what you're seeing here is one of our supervisory type screens where you have the ability to navigate the application with a keyboard and mouse, drive into detailed information, etc., as compared to this type of user experience, which is big buttons, large text for the operators out on the shop floor. So what we're conveying here is their work in process dispatch list. So this is coming from the ERP system in terms of MRP, MSP, creating that production plan, and now we're executing on that production plan. But as you can see here, I've got my list of jobs, I've got my status indicators on the right-hand side, as well as my what we call our action buttons out on the left side of the screen. So here, very quickly and easily from an operator's perspective, this is the list of jobs that I need to work on in this particular sequence. And as I'm working on them, as I'm reporting activity, production, quantities, so on and so forth, that information will again update Business Central. And this dispatch list is a living one where I have the ability to go ahead and then select the next job once I'm done. So from ease of use, I just simply click on a job, hit start run. It prompts me for my badge number if I've got it so configured, and now I'm on that job. Simple, no problem, easy to do. If you have the ability to buy gas at a pump, you can execute the workflows within MV2. So that helps drive user adoption. That also drives ease of use for employees maybe coming into the workforce at an early stage in their career, or perhaps more seasoned veterans who are coming off of a paper-based system and into this system, as you see here. But supporting information, what we call our electronic shop packet, bill of material, routing information, but I just also wanted to allude to the shop packet in terms of supplemental information. So your work instructions, maybe drawings, videos, how to set up this particular machine or the assembly process, supporting all of that information at the touch of a finger for those operators out on the shop floor. So as you can imagine, all that activity is taking place. Maybe material handlers are moving material from one location to another, etc. But here is actually that dashboard that I was referring to, and it gives anybody that's immediately looking at it instant awareness that in this case, we've got problems with the Work Centers Assembly 3 and Assembly 4. There's reason, code, tracking, detailed information, etc. for that. But the point being, again, from the shop floor command center perspective, you have the visibility to understand where the problems are, go and address those problems to get back on track. As I alluded to earlier, downtime is one of those issues that every manufacturer struggles with. There's a lot of costs associated with downtime, but more importantly, as it relates to the visibility of it. But then the next step is, how do I avoid that from taking place the next time? So guided activity. So we're going to look at this particular issue from the standpoint of our metrics. And so our KPIs, our key performance indicators, allows you to drive into that content, those events that have been taking place out on the shop floor, And now my downtime activity chart comes up, and I have the ability to make some changes here. I like bar charts. I'm just going to simply grab a bigger range of data. I have the ability to select one, multiple work centers, etc. If I leave it blank, it simply shows me now all the detailed downtime for the date range for the particular work cells or machines that I selected. And in this case, it paints the picture in a left to right orientation. Again, we're looking at downtime, and it's not good to have downtime. But in this case, ASEM number 7 has the worst, and it goes from there. So not only have you given yourself the ability to see it from the dashboard perspective and immediately go ahead and support it at that point in time, but now we're at a different level. We're almost at an industrial engineer or continuous improvement. And if I take one of these particular work cells and see that, my goodness, I want to drive into this, it actually allows me to see for this particular date range, for this particular work cell, I have mechanical issues as my biggest downtime contributor, followed by material issues or electrical. So the point of this all being is now you can support your continuous improvement initiatives with the data that has been collected by the operators out on the shop floor. And now you have the ability to improve those processes, get your Kaizen events, those types of things into play such that the execution of your shop floor is, again, optimized based on all that information. So that was a quick tour of the application. I just wanted to do one other quick thing as far as back to the presentation, if I could, and come back to this for a couple of quick takeaways as far as the solution. So the simplicity and the visibility. Unfortunately, I only had a few minutes to share the user experience, but it is geared for those operators out on the shop floor. But we also have visibility into each manufacturing order, purchase orders, inventory, the traceability of that material, serialization, batch lot, so on and so forth. The actionable data starting at the dashboards and working them through to the KPIs and the dashboards. And then finally, this concept of a shop floor command center. Again, MES is far more than data collection. It collects information, but more importantly, it guides the execution of the activity for the optimal output that you're trying to achieve as a manufacturing organization. So as a wrap up, our website is iscteam.com, so you can find some additional information there. Here's my contact information. Feel free to ask me any questions at any point in time. Be happy to help.